Thank you and welcome to IvyCap Day. Always a pleasure to have you here. Welcome Manish, welcome Gaurav. So several years ago, two young men, mostly with a technology background, got into an area which they knew nothing about and wanted to change the world. And here we are with them. Manish, who heads Purple, and Gaurav, who heads BlueStone. And the topic that we want to explore really is how have you built these companies, these hugely valuable and profitable companies, how do you wire them, or how have you wired them along the way for success? And in the context of the overall theme, I want to start by simply asking you to just introduce yourself and the companies that you're building and take us to the tension between value creation and return focus.
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. Good morning to everyone. I co-founded Purple about 11 and a half, 12 years ago. Purple is a new generation beauty company which uses an online first approach to creating new beauty experiences for all the people in India. Our ambition is to build India's largest beauty company, exceeding many multinationals that we've been used to. And in that journey, it's not going to happen in 3 or 4 years or 5 years. It might take us 10, 15 years, and that's how we are wired. So yeah, look, I mean, it's been a very rewarding journey so far, but I guess the best is yet to come. So very excited about both mid-term and long-term future. I mean, as Naveen was saying, this is going to be India's decade. I am absolutely super bullish about it. So, hopefully if we all stay sane and if we all build responsibly, we should be able to build very large companies from India for the world, and that would be our next goalpost. So, yeah, I'm very excited about the next 10 years.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gaurav, founder and CEO of BlueStone. So we started around the same time in 2012 when we launched. And the idea at that time was to create an online-only jewelry brand. What we saw was that the incumbents were very strong in this business or in this category, generally offline. But the technology adoption was very poor. So we thought that, okay, there was an opportunity to create a tech-focused online brand. I think over the time we realized that online has a great pull and it's a great medium for demand aggregation. And that offline also has its own advantages. So we kind of always operated with first principles. We had no prior experience in this category, so I think that helped in a way. We had no baggage. We had no qualms about this is how it is operated. So this is how we must operate. So I think that first principle approach helped us. And I think 3 to 4 years after starting as online only, we realized that making it omni-channel can actually easily take the business 30 to 40 times. And honestly, we were able to see all those signals because our minds were always open and so on. So I think that was, to answer your question, that was in the core DNA of the company and still carries in the DNA of the company to question everything, to look at the data and then take data-based decisions.
So, it's great to hear you say that, but this is all good in hindsight, right? And one of the things that we were really impressed with, all of you, while you were building the business, is with your conviction that you could change things around. But in that journey, when you were focused on building it the way you plan to do, there are a lot of distractions. And one of them is just go raise as much capital as you can at whatever valuation you can. And to some extent, that's the criticism today of not only highly valued companies, but the VC space in general. So walk us through how did you managed to remain tightly focused with what you were building and avoid the noise of just, raising capital and showing a top line and just moving ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a question that's often asked, and I'm actually a very, very focused guy. I mean, to some people, I might look like a very, very, straight jacketed guy. I have no qualms of saying that I'm very, very focused on what I do today. So for last 11 years, I have not read a newspaper. I stay away from noise that's there all around us. I don't see how newspapers have benefited us in building any business, in the last 10 years. So just one day just thought about, how do I reduce noise in my life? I've told all our investors not to send me random articles on what gets published about competitors or anybody. Once in a while, people send in great reports and I do read them. But honestly, at our office, I have never seen competitors get discussed or, what's happening in the world gets discussed. I think second, I would say in hindsight, it's been a great blessing to build a company in Bombay because Bombay is this, neutralish kind of a place. It's never been, as crazy as probably Bangalore gets. That's my perception. I'm not too sure. Naveen can probably say much better things like about it. But I just think, Bombay has been this place where these Guju, Marwadi people have built like multi-billion-dollar businesses while staying under the radar. And I think that kind of gets on to you. They just don't show off what they've built. I mean, like, look at Uday Kotak. I mean, from where Kotak started to where it is today, you don't see him in newspapers, but what a great institution built. So look, there are so many, I think some of it is just serendipitously, you end up being this way. Some of it is just your surroundings. Some of it is your habits of. And I think to your question on valuations, look, my view is I come from Fidelity's school of thinking. I used to work at Fidelity. It's a very value-centric investor till date. It's also a very contrarian investor. So they typically like to take bets that other people feel are not worth taking. And hence, if you come from that sort of mindset, you always have to tell yourself that there is no wealth creation going to happen if you follow the herd and if you follow the noise. But wealth creation is only going to happen if you, take a contrarian approach to life, which is, yeah, if everybody else is getting stuck in the news, just stay away from it. So my ideals, have been, people who just stay away from the noise. We would love to stay under the radar as much as possible. I think that's been our DNA. It's worked out very well for us, so we would like to continue to be this way, for next 2 decades or so, and then hopefully maybe we'll not be able to avoid this after that.
Great points. We'll come back to that, points around DNA, points around focus, points around cutting out the noise. And we'll probably drill down into some of them. But Gaurav, what's your...
Yeah, so I can quote, in hindsight, it's obviously much easier to answer on this, how much to raise or how to create value versus valuation or returns. So I think very early on, and if I just look back at our journey, I think in first year we did 6 crore of revenues, in second year we did around 20 crore of revenues. Now at that time when we were raising the fund, so I think many a times what happens is you project this 6 to 20 journey to all the way to 2,000 crore, 20,000 crore. And then you say, fine, because it's a 2,000, 20,000 crore business, and by doing exactly the same thing over and over again for next 8 years, how about you give me $200 million and we go on this journey? So I think when you raise for 4, 5, 6 years, what happens is you kind of lock yourself in on that commitment. And that actually is a big problem because let's say 1 year down the line, you realize that beyond 50 crore, this approach is not scaling. But the investor that you have gotten on board was onboarded basis that hypothesis, right? So it just becomes very difficult to kind of pivot, and not just investor, because when you actually believe truly that 2 data points that you're seeing are going to go all the way to 6 or 8 years down the line, you built an organization also for that, right? So you don't build journalists, then you hire specialists. You're actually fully geared to take that journey, only to realize that 1 year it capped out after 1 year. And so how do you do? So you kind of get jammed there. So my sense or my belief right now is you don't extrapolate too much. You extrapolate to 1 or 2 more data points, figure out how much capital you need for that, and maybe raise double of that, but not raise all the capital that is available in that market just because of the greed cycle, etc. Because you're going to lock in yourself into a commitment that is not fully played out. Now, if you're operating in a category where predictability is very high, and you know that it's going to become 10x, etc. For example, let's say if you're in a cab aggregator model, and you know that in US, China, etc., it has already played out, you can raise 200 million, 300 million, 500 million, whatever. But if you're developing, I'll again use the word by first principles, you are doing something which is truly innovative, let's say in robotics, in something which has never been done before, don't extrapolate too much and raise capital basis that, because you will lock in yourself, investors, organization, everyone to that commitment, and you will let go of that first principle thinking that that actually got you there.
That's also a fantastic point, because what you're saying is really raise as much capital that gives you a buffer, but definitely how much your business can absorb at that point in time, given your ambition and given the organization and so on. So I think we are touching upon some of the elements of wiring, how you build for a large value play. So let's start with some of the points you mentioned, and I wanted to take this a little bit later, but you mentioned some traits of yourself, being focused and keeping out the noise, and you also mentioned that we don't discuss competitors, and I'm extrapolating that means you basically focus on market, customer, product, right? Now, tell me how your DNA or this thinking you have translated into making your organization much more customer or market focused than anything else.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and it didn't happen on its own. So I think 3-4 years ago, I told our team that, let's spend 25 hours a month with customers, each one of us as senior individuals. And that just didn't happen. Nobody did it. I waited for 1 quarter, it didn't happen. Then I waited for another quarter and I put it in our OKRs. It still didn't happen. So the next quarter, and I was very frustrated. I was talking to my co-founder and said, "Yeah, log kar kyun nahi rahe?" So he said, "ठीक है, let's set an example." So we started being in the market almost 4 days a month, almost like 40 hours a week. And I think that changed everything. So today I continue to speak to, 3 or 4 customers, non-customers of Purple every week. My co-founder is in the market 2 days a week in different parts of India. So as we speak, I'm flying in yesterday from Cochin. Kerala is one of our largest markets, surprisingly, for a lot of people. Next couple of weeks from now, we plan to be in Calicut. These are cities we have never been to in our lives. These are not usual places for you to go. So look, I think we had to lead by example. There was no other way out. I think it's always cushy to sit in your office and pontificate on how things should be. I just don't think it helps. I think you're building castles in the air, and something we want to avoid. I think, Naveen had alluded to this. I think businesses are very simple and very boring. It's a usual grind of the day. I just think we kind of think they're very castles in the air kind of things. They are not. So we just keep doing the boring things over and over again now. We also do simple stuff, stuff that is relevant for the customers, and that's all what we do, I don't think, as I said, I don't think we discuss competition at office. I don't think we discuss, at least as founders, we have never brought up any competition thing. Yeah, once in a while, somebody will leave a newspaper at my desk which says, a new competitor is launching recently. I would just respond back saying, bring it on, what else can you do? You can't be worried about what others do. You have to focus on what your customer needs, and I think that's worked so well. Why would you not continue to do it, in future?
So lesson on focus, and not only personal focus, but also customer focus. Gaurav?
So on wiring, so on organizational wiring, I think one of the things that has worked very well for us is, so we don't have a lot of managerial layers, or I've generally tried to keep the mid-management kind of as low as possible. Otherwise, at least in the early stages, I've seen that doesn't work out too well. Just too much is lost in communication from one layer to another and so on, and then ownership is all over the place. So I think hands-on operators, right? So even at the top, almost everyone in our company is very, very hands-on. That openness to actually question everything, each and everything, whether it came from me, whether it came from my co-founder or CFO, CEO, whosoever it came from, I think even the bottommost or anyone in the company, even let's say at the front line, a person can ask the question, can question that. Is it the right thing to do? Is it not the right thing to do? So that kind of keeps us also very honest. And one thing that Manish said, that businesses are actually very, very boring and very, very, you just have to do the regular stuff. So I think there's that phase where you need to figure out things. And oftentimes what I've seen is, and that's not easy, figuring things out. But once you have figured out, it is so easy that if you tell someone that, okay, this is what we need to do, they'll say, seriously, that's what you spent your 1 year on? So and then you have to keep on repeatedly doing it over and over again. So I think cutting the flap, keeping it lean is what actually makes it work for as long as you can. I know beyond a point, when things scale to a significantly high level, it's not easy. But in the early years, and I'll just go back to year 15, 16, 17, and I know so many e-commerce companies, Manish, especially in the vertical e-commerce, so many companies, because they were all flush with funds. Everyone hired CMO, everyone under CMO, there were 3 VPs of marketing, similarly for almost every function within the organization. And that actually dragged a lot of them down. They just couldn't move when the markets changed.
You know, maybe Ashish, I'll just say one more thing which I've realized is very important to probably operate in India. And, you know, in GDP, there is a factor called total factor productivity, which is how well different entities within you sort of work together and achieve an objective. I think getting people, a lot of diverse people to work is also not easy towards one objective. And therefore, I think having one person in the org at senior level who just gets the stuff done, you know, makes sure that everybody talks to each other and works towards one goal, things roll out on time from everybody, I just think has been a massive productivity boost for us. So I think it could be a difference between growing at 50% and growing at 70% a year by just not giving any additional inputs, just getting everybody to go live together at the same time. I think those basic hacks have worked out really, really well. We have it in one part of our business. We don't have it in another part of our business, but I think the part of the business that we have been able to get this right, I think our growth rate is easily 20, 25 percentage points higher than what we had planned for.
So, you know, you guys are giving me so many trails, different trails to follow, that I'm kind of like a boy in a chocolate shop. So let me just take it one by one. I think let's pick up on the innovation thread that you mentioned. And you know, part of it is boring, but part of it is challenging and questioning things every day, right? And much as you could say that, you know, you are, you know, basically you're a e-commerce company, but I know the number of innovations that all of you have built over the years, right? So can you walk us through how did you, first of all, what innovations did you do along the way? And secondly, how did you build that culture that Gaurav mentioned of questioning things and finding new ways of doing things? Because otherwise you can't disrupt good old industries that you come from.
You know, maybe I can go first. You know, I think the biggest innovation we've done in our business is new launches in any FMCG company, and especially in new age FMCG companies, which are launching a lot of new launches every year, are unpredictable. We use a lot of data science and AI capabilities to first launch the right products in the market, specific to a region or a state or a city in India, and at the same time use a lot of data and AI capabilities to market them in a very efficient manner using YouTube. So we are probably the biggest partners of YouTube in India now. In fact, YouTube Shopping has just launched in India. And we and Myntra are the only 2 partners that they have gone live with so far, I think for the first 6 months to get sort of things ironed out. So I think I would say it's been just massive use of data and machine learning over the last 3 to 6 years, most recently now it's re-christianed as AI. So I think those capabilities have been, in many ways, I think it's a very contrarian way to do things. I think the usual way of marketing used to be reach and frequency. It works for very settled businesses. I don't think it works for businesses which are 0 to 1. And hence, just reinventing the wheel on how do you market very efficiently in a certain geography for a certain specific product so that you create a lot of demand for that product, so that not just your consumers ask for it online, but also, consumers go into retail shops and also ask for those products, and hence your distribution becomes easier. I think that's been the innovation. I think the way we've innovated, or the system in the company that helps you innovate, is as follows. There are a set of people who like to work on these problems and are okay to fail probably 100 times a year. What you have to tell them is, we back you. Keep staying in one corner of the office. We won't bother you every week. We will probably speak to you once a month, once a quarter. And, the more such number of people you can find, you recruit them and give them the confidence that if you keep failing for 4 quarters, 5 quarters on the trot, it's okay. We will continue to back you. Because we also know that nothing worthwhile will get built in 1 or 2 quarters. It will probably take 6 to 8 quarters, so we continue to back them. So all this stuff that I'm telling you about, using data to create new products and using data and AI capabilities to market them really effectively to our consumers, didn't get built over 4 quarters. We've been at it since 2015-16. And today, it seems like a moat, but look, it's taken us 5 or 6 years to build. So it's just been, long-term patient thinking and backing certain kind of people who don't mind failing every day. But, as long as you back them, they continue to feel that they are empowered in the system to continue to take those risks.
What's interesting is I pick out the seemingly contradictory things that you do on a daily basis in terms of, let's say, being an e-commerce and digital marketing driven company, but yet taking the lead and going out to physically meeting consumers. It may be seen as a contradiction, but it's not.
Look, it's not a contradiction at all.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
and also, what's not a contradiction is working on innovation but calling the business boring. Because
Right,
I think
exactly.
at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is avoid the noise. You have to avoid the noise for yourself. You also have to avoid the noise for your key people. You have to tell them, just those certain labs are blocked for you. Please go there, work every day. We won't bother you with what's happening in the market, what's new thing we want you to do today. I think it's just been one core principle, just stay focused on your problem, back yourself, and, hopefully after 3 or 4 quarters, something great comes out, and that's it, that will propel your growth for the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also mentioned keeping the thinkers and the analytics people there, but yet having somebody in the team to really take people along and focus them on the outcomes. So Gaurav, what's your take on, first of all, these, the DNA and then the seeming contradictions that you have to deal with in terms of these?
Sure. So throughout our journey, some of the innovations, some of the things that we did very, very differently from how those were done in the market. I think the first one itself was the whole. So when we started in 2012, when we tried to photograph the products, we realized that it was just impossible, almost impossible to photograph jewelry pieces beautifully. It's a very tricky product to photograph. The pieces are this small and it's gold and diamond. So it's reflecting surface or a refracting surface, right? So light either comes back or light goes through. How do you photograph such a product beautifully? And then you actually have to do it at 10x, 20x zoom, right? A perfect shiny surface, when you're actually photographing it, a minor dent also will be visible in that, right? Not in an opaque wall, but in a reflecting surface, a minor dent, a minor scratch will be visible, and then you zoom it 20x and you're done, right? It looks like a piece of scrap. And that's how the first set of photographs looked like. And I said, what is this? I mean, these don't look as beautiful as the products that I gave you. And he said, this is how it's done, right? So this statement that this is how it's done is your worst enemy. Because you then, and again, I'll again go back to first principles. I said, maybe, but this is not what's going to work out. So I said, what's the solution? No solution. Everyone is doing this, so we should also do this. I said, people won't buy it. I mean, they have to actually fall in love with that design. We are in a business where a person, a woman has to look at that piece. It's not a specification-driven purchase that you're buying a book or a mobile. A person has to actually fall in love with that design, and then only she'll buy it. So we did iterate a lot. We stopped the launch. We delayed the launch for 4 months. I said, I'm not launching with this. This will look just so bad on the brand, on reputation, and so on. And then we actually started doing 3D rendering of those products, right? So we were the first ones in the world to actually take that approach. I said, fine, the whole CAD/CAM modeling is being used for production. Why can't we use it for depiction also? Why can't we use it for product presentation also? I said, no one does it. And this statement, no one does it, everyone is doing that, I think these are your worst enemies. I have a long story there, which this not a forum to kind of talk about that. So it's an experiment done on 5 monkeys. Few of you might have already heard about that. That's a very interesting experiment that actually talks about this thing of people after a certain time, people stop asking why, they only know what. This is being done. If you ask them why, they'll have no clue. So I think keeping that thing aside is very, very, very important. Ask why for everything. Actually, that is what made the market move also, because it's not that Tanesh, Kalyan, Malabar, no one had a website. They had a website, but you go to that website, it was like, you would not even feel like this thing is worth 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees, and so on. So that was the first one. Second came along the way, which was on the whole production side. We realized that as we were expanding our offerings, we could not inventorize everything. So we had to move to just-in-time manufacturing. That was the only way for us to expand our catalog without increasing the working capital. So we went to a lot of manufacturers that, okay, we want you to manufacture after we get an order. And they said, yeah, that will take some 3-4 weeks. I said, why? He said, itna hi lagta hai. I said, kyun lagta hai? Matlab, is physics stopping you? Does the goal take like 4 weeks to solidify? What is it that's stopping you? No one had any answer, just itna hi lagta hai. I said, fine, we'll set up our own manufacturing facility. We did that and we brought it down to 3 days, which was when the whole model became viable. But you'll have to actually go deep and do a lot of these things. And something similar happened in omni-channel also, right? So we saw the clear signals, and the whole world in 2016 was still divided between are you an online company, are you an offline company? I said, we are a customer-centric company. Online, offline doesn't matter, right? Customer is, if you ask you, are you an online customer, are you an offline customer, or are you an online person or an offline person? What will you say? Right? So similarly, I'm saying asking this question to a company also is a very, very wrong thing to do, because these are all tools available to you. Online is a tool available to you. Offline is a tool available to you. Everything has its own strength. You have to be oblivious to that. And then look at the customer problem and figure out, of all these tools available to you, what is the best way of solving that customer's problem, and that will actually keep you going. So that's the journey of omnichannel. Another example I'll give you is, now we have around 176 stores. You need merchandisers. Typically, the typical structure is you need merchandisers, people who decide what to keep in what store. We have 0 merchandisers in the company. It's a machine learning driven code. It's a data driven decision. The moment you put a person there, that data goes for a toss. Because a personal bias comes in. Data is saying this, but mujhe lagta hai ye bikega. I said, I don't want that mujhe lagta hai ye bikega. If you have that kind of an instinct, become a designer and make that. But once you have made it, let the data decide what goes and what does not go.
No, we are sort of running short of time, so I'll, like 2 quick questions, right? One is a long one, but I just want you to, one is a pretty long, could be a long discussion, so I want you to keep it very focused, right? Gaurav, you mentioned that now you have plenty of time, which I think is a great sign of success, because that means you have built a team. So your 2 or 3 bullet points on how do you build a great leadership team? Leadership team.
Yeah, so I think one most important thing is a culture fit, which and we've recently hired, not recently, so basically in the last couple of years, we've hired 2 people at CXO level, and that has actually taken the load off very well. And this is not the first time. In 2016 also I hired, and I hired all the wrong people. And then I sat back and pondered what went wrong. I realized that I hired them for their experience, but a lot of things, so basically the higher the experience, the more it's like just throw that person at the problem and he'll solve every problem. Didn't happen. So people who spent a lot of time in the same industry, doing the same thing over and over again, I find that they find it very difficult to gel in a startup because you still have that culture of asking questions and so on. So I feel people who are from that area, who have decent experience, but you still have that openness to learn. People who, and then they have to be a culture fit, right? So someone coming from this kind of work environment and then suddenly coming to the office and say कि ये कैसा office है, मतलब मेरे office में तो fridge था, उसमें सब पूरे time snacks रखे रहते थे, and so on and so forth. So I think some of those signals I look for in the leadership hiring. And so my first go at it, which was 5-6 years back, I was wrong almost 90% of the times. This time, I've generally not been wrong in last 3-4 hires that I've made. In fact, I'm very happy that I've evolved.
Okay, so we have to conclude. We can sit here today and definitely make the statement that you are very successful. But just one comment on 10 years from now, or whatever time it takes, India is a $10 trillion economy. Where will Purple and BlueStone be?
Yeah, I think my view is I think we are always unsure as leaders. I think it's very hard for us to say where we'll be, 1 year, 2 years from down the line. I think world has become very, very unpredictable. It's very, very hard to say. I mean, just 2 months ago, we didn't know that YouTube shopping would launch in India and all links in YouTube will get disabled. So I think it's a very volatile world we live in and hence very hard to predict. But, I would say an ambition for us would be, can we be 10x in 10 years, grow at, maybe 2.5 times the nominal GDP growth rate. I think that would be a good achievement. If you can do faster than that while having good unit economics and great cash management cycles, I think that'll be better. But I think I would be okay to settle for 10x in 10 years.
So ours kind of is a different case. So for first 10 years, a lot of this innovation, etc., has happened. I think right now where we are standing is we have found what needs to be done, and we just need to kind of do it repeatedly. And our category is huge. It's almost a $80 billion category, right? So, and I'll just give you a few data points. There's a jewelry store in Chennai that does 2,000 crore. Tanishq is sitting at a 35 billion market cap, or more than that, with just 5% of the market share. So the market depth is huge. In every city, you have a jeweler who is one of the richest persons in this country, and their business is they're struggling now because of they have not kind of kept pace with the changing times and the technology. So I think in our case, what had happened was we did a lot of innovation, and this industry did not see a lot of innovation. This category did not see a lot of innovation over last many years. So there was that technology, that debt that was already there, that innovation debt, which we did a lot of those innovations in 5, 6, 7 years, and we kind of laid it in the right fashion. So I think for us, the next few years is going to be very high growth years.
Great. So the story is just started, right?
In our case, yes.
All the best to you. And ladies and gentlemen, look out for these gentlemen because they're really shaping companies in a really large industry. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Siddhi, can we have the token of appreciation and a photograph? Thank you, Manish and Gaurav, for sharing your secret sauce of building successful organizations. Very nice key takeaways. No wealth creation if you follow the herd. And your worst enemy can be, this is how it is done. It is just a different feeling to hear the stories from the story makers themselves. And all ladies in the house, these brands are especially for you and for the men who want to keep their women happy.